If I could have your attention. Thank you. It's great to see everybody here today. I wish we were here. You know, it's a great day for celebration and talking about all the great things that our honorees have gotten, many of whom I've known for years and years, and it's fantastic. But unfortunately, we have an underlying crisis in our communities. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here to talk to you today. Many of you know what's been going on for the last 3.5 years, where our own government at the city and at the state level has told us that our communities don't deserve to exist. And we are here today because we are facing the ultimate crisis point on this with the city of Yes. So we, without going into tremendous detail of the past, we are now facing, as is titled here, an extinction event for our communities. And it's all being done in the name of progress, in the name of we need housing. There's a lot of rhetoric and propaganda being put out by the state and certainly by the city. And if you pay attention to one thing, please pay attention to what I'm showing you today. Because all of this is coming up. The economic portion of this is being voted on, as I believe Linda Lee stated, at the end of, or the beginning of June, late May, early June. The housing piece was released on Thursday, okay? So we are really in a situation where this administration, the Department of City Planning, and the mayor and his allies are all trying to ram this through as soon as possible. So let's talk a little bit about this. And you'll excuse me because I'm using my mouse on my leg. It's like, I wish I had a little table here or something, but I don't have it. So we're going to start with a little propaganda. Back in October, I was looking on the Department of City Planning's X/Twitter feed, and I saw this and I did a double take. It's called 1989. This was obviously in reference to Taylor Swift's album. It really was, actually. But they show a map of New York City, the zoning map from that time. And the amazing thing is the quote that comes with it. And the quote is, "We've got bad blood with Robert Moses, and we've made a lot of progress to improve New York City zoning, but we're not out of the woods yet. That's why we're chasing our wildest dreams in City of Yes to shake exclusionary zoning off and say once and for all, welcome to New York." Okay, now I don't know what creative agency the DCP has hired or staffers from this, but this is not the reality that we live in. I want a show of hands. Who here owns their own home? Okay. Who owns a one-family home? Who owns a two-family home? Who owns a co-op or condo? Okay. But the vast majority of people here are homeowners, right? We are all owner-occupiers. We are not landlords. That's not what we are. We make up 1/3 of the population in New York City. 1/3 of the units are owner-occupied. The city has decided, this administration, that we do not deserve to exist. And that goes for middle-income co-ops and condos. We know this as well. So, since they brought up Moses, let's talk about Robert Moses for a second. Okay? Obviously a very controversial individual. We all know his legacy. A lot of it bad, some of it not so bad. But these are some of his quotes. You might see a through line to the current administration. "Your principal error is this: to imagine that the people's views are of any importance at all. We must advance their fortunes without having any respect for their opinions. You can draw any kind of picture you want on a clean slate and indulge your every whim in the wilderness and laying out a New Delhi, Canberra, or Brasilia, but when you operate in an overbuilt metropolis, you have to hack your way with a meat axe. And maybe this is something that connects to our current situation. If you elect a matinee idol mayor, you're going to have a musical comedy administration. Okay, these are direct quotes from Robert Moses. There was a woman named Jane Jacobs. She fought him. Again, these are complicated, gray people. This is not a black and white situation at all. But it's interesting. This article came out in the Post 8 years ago. Meet the woman who took on Robert Moses and saved Lower Manhattan. Here's one quote from her. Cities grow up. They just happen bit by bit. Hand a city to the planners and they'll make it a desert. Hand it to the people and they'll make it habitable. Okay? As someone who's a planner, I agree with her 100%, because most planners are not planners. They're real estate people, and there's a difference. Today, the Daily News put out an editorial. It says, "A home for us." Let me read you the pertinent part and why this all fits into this narrative. However, what should be dismissed offhand is anything that too heavily emphasizes neighborhood character, property values, or fretting over increased density. These tedious arguments are missing the point, which is that a lack of housing stock threatens affordability and quality of life in all of New York, and there's no way to dodge this by holding firm against development. The bucolic character of any particular neighborhood is going to matter little as the current residents are priced out. For those who desperately want to live in a suburb, we'll remind you that there are several in the immediate vicinity of the 5 boroughs. This is New York City. Okay? So we are now in a post-truth environment on every level, whether it's coming from elected officials, rhetoric from the Daily News, the New York Times, the Post, who all are speaking their own language, but they're not speaking the language of reality, which is that should this go through in any form, it will destroy huge parts of New York City. There will be no benefit except for the developers who are doing things. This was from the hearing on Monday for economic opportunity at the City Council. This was actually a slide that the chair of the City Planning Commission, Dan Garodnick, put up. This slide is super interesting. How many people here are on community boards? Raise your hands. Okay, a lot of people on community boards, right. So, you'll see this timeline, and you'll see something very interesting. There's a circle here that says 175 meetings with community boards. That's a lot of meetings, except we have 59 community boards, so that works out to about 3 meetings per community board. Okay? Over here it says 4 of 5 borough presidents, including our borough president, Donovan Richards, supports the city of Yes. Okay, you should talk to him. So, here's what they left out. The majority of community boards voted this down. Two-thirds of community boards voted this down unanimously or near unanimously. 1/3 voted yes with conditions. Now, for those of you who aren't on community boards, there are 4 ways you can vote. Yes, yes with conditions, no with conditions, or no. The problem is that city planning and the process, the actual land use process, is that a yes vote is a yes vote and a no vote is a no vote. And they frankly don't care about the conditions, and they are not included when they are actually tallied. So many of the yes votes are actually now no votes because their conditions were not met. So the Department of City Planning included a few comments from a few community boards, called that public participation, and lauded how they listened to the city and the community boards and modified the language by about a page or two. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about the synergy between the economic piece and the housing piece. How many of you have seen me give my spiels for the last 4 months? Okay, quite a few of you, yes. So I don't want to bore you with all of that, but I do want to talk about what happened and the gaslighting that is going on from the Department of City Planning and our elected officials, some of them. This was a slide that was shown at every community board. Community board members will remember, they came out with these one-sentence descriptions with a single soft photo saying, create a process to allow for small new bodegas and other locally serving storefronts in residential areas. This is when DCP was giving an hour speech on this, and then expecting the community boards to vote on 1,127 pages of text. 1,127. How many of you read the 1,127 pages of text? Okay?
Thank you.
So, let's look at this one. This is what they showed to City Council on Monday. Isn't it interesting that they're showing different information, different information to the City Council than what they were showing to the community boards. So this is actually closer to the text, because what you saw in here, this one sentence, that's not what this is. This is going to allow the ability for the Department of City Planning and the City Planning Commission to allow up to 2,500 square feet of commercial within 100 feet of every corner on every block in New York City. Let me show you what that looks like. Hold on a second here. Whoops, sorry. Here we go. So this is Throgsneck in the Bronx. I'm just going to breeze through this. Those are your existing commercial areas. These are the locations where they could put commercial. Here's City Island. Same thing, your existing commercial. Here's where they could put commercial. Canarsie, existing commercial. Georgetown, Mill Basin, Bergen Beach, existing commercial. Ridgewood, existing commercial. We all think, Ridgewood, I know Paul's here and a lot of people from Ridgewood. Okay. Kew Gardens. Forest Hills Gardens in Forest Hills South. That's the gardens in the blue. This is the Baisley section, South Jamaica, by Baisley Pond. That's correct. And Howard Beach and Lindenwood. There's your Cross Bay Boulevard and Lindenwood Shopping Center. Now, all of these areas up here are in another section, which I'm going to talk about briefly, about allowing 15,000 square feet of commercial in a residential area if you have 1.5 acres or more. Okay? So let's go back here. Let me show you what was happening here. At the City Council hearing, the council members asked the Department of City Planning, the CPC kept saying over and over again, well, we've created a process that the community boards and the borough president, they're going to be able to vote their approval on this, as you can see, subject to both environmental review and community board approval. The council members did their homework, and they said very clearly, wait, so you're not going to approve this at city planning if the community boards say no? And it was asked 3 or 4 times, and Chair Garodnick hemmed and hawed, tried to change the subject, but finally stated they are advisory only. Which they are. And you cannot tell people who know the process that it's subject to environmental review and community board approval. It's not subject to community board approval. If the community boards say no, CPC can say yes. Okay, so let me show you this. This is Community Board 8. So Community Board 8 is a typical board in Queens. It's got some very suburban areas, some more urban areas, and stuff in between. The light yellow is one-family zoning, orange is two-family zoning. These are the areas, and the reason I bring this up is that the narrative from the city has changed on this. First it was, we want to allow commercial, it's not going to happen though. Don't worry about it, we're never going to approve it. Then they put out this press release, right here. This came out the day after the City Planning Commission approved this. Create a process to allow corner stores in residential areas, as approximately 265,000 New Yorkers currently live in areas where a new corner store could not be located within a quarter of a mile of their home. Well, that would be Jamaica Estates and Holliswood for the most part. All the other areas you see, those areas are within a quarter of a mile. So let's take a quick look. Okay, just to let you know, that 265,000 people sounds like a lot. It's 3% of the population of New York City. When has the City Planning Commission ever done anything for 3% of the population of New York City? Something doesn't add up, right? So let's look at why they want this to go through. Here's Jamaica Estates. This is your zoning. R12, R2, R3X, two-family zoning here, multifamily, and single family. Let's look at this little area here by the Grand Central. Typical block in Jamaica Estates. Green, leafy, single-family homes. Every one of these locations could have commercial. Any and ever, if this becomes law. Let's look at this property in particular. I'm going to show you how the housing combines with the commercial portions of this proposal. This is a big piece of property, 16,800 square feet. Here's your house. Okay, present zoning, one family only, 5,700 minimum lot size. You have to have a parking space. Okay. Currently, you can subdivide this property to make a one-family home. Needs a parking space, a single unit. The proposal is to get rid of all single and two-family zoning in the city of New York. So they want to create two-family houses plus accessory dwelling units, which would be 9 units minimum, with much larger lot coverage, higher floor area ratio, smaller minimum lot size. Okay, all of this stuff. And no parking requirements for any new residential development in the city of New York. One family, 300 units, doesn't matter. This would be allowed under the transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development is part of this entire proposal. This transit-oriented development, if I can find it, this is a map of Community Board 11. See all the areas in blue? Those are all areas that will be in the transit zone. These are areas in Jamaica Estates. All of these properties would be allowed to have an apartment building on them in Jamaica Estates. Not just a 1 or a 2 or even a 3-family home, but an apartment building. The same thing in Laurelton as well. Same thing in Laurelton. Same thing in Douglaston. Same thing everywhere. Okay? This situation, I just want to confirm with people here. This whole discussion about exclusionary zoning is false. This is a false discussion. Most cities have 65 to 85% single-family zoning. We have 15%. And another 9% is two-family. This is not about exclusionary zoning. This is Seattle, 81%. Chicago, 79%. Portland, 77%. Los Angeles, 75%. Minneapolis, 70%. Even Washington, D.C., 36%. New York City, 15%. Notice where most of it is. East of the Van Wyck Expressway. 2/3 of all single-family zoning. Here's a map. This is all the two-family zoning, along with single-family zoning. All of this would be changed to 3+ families per parcel. Baseline, along with changing the lot sizes and the floor areas. And everything you see here are transit zones. These are all areas where apartment buildings will be allowed. Anything you see here that's crosshatched or blue, the crosshatched is current 1 and 2 family zones. The blue areas are higher density. So again, this would be in a transit zone. All of Jamaica Estates is in a transit zone. This property would generate a 33-unit apartment building where there is currently a single-family home. 33 units, no parking required. Okay? And here's where the synergy with the economic piece is. They go to the City Planning Commission, they say, we want an authorization to put in 2,500 square feet of retail on the first floor. Proposal number 16. So, in a nutshell, that gives you a pretty good idea, I think, of what we're dealing with. Similar to campus commercial, just very quickly visually. Bell Boulevard in Northern, major commercial area. This is a rental complex. I had a conversation previously with someone who's in co-ops. Let's forget about the co-ops. Just look at a rental section. These are classic garden apartments. The key word is garden, right? Garden apartments. All of these are meant to be infill in this administration. This is meant to have more housing. So you would get a building, and then, because it's on a campus, they could put 15,000 square feet of commercial on that first floor. So this is just 2 of 18 economic proposals and about 40 proposals in the housing. And I'm not even going into great detail, but this is the challenge of our lives. I've said this over and over. And we won in 2021, we won against the governor in 2022 and 2023. Now we have a mayor, a city planning commission, and their allies working feverishly on an expedited timeline to ram this through and destroy our communities. So with that happy note, I'm happy to take a question or two. If you want me to.
Yeah, you should.
Sure. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. What an amazing, fascinating presentation by Paul Graziano. And he's going to remain around. The Attorney General is here. He's going to speak, and then once you've done, if you have questions for Paul, you can do that. All right?